Genesis 40 to 42. After these things, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. And he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he took care of them. And they stayed in the prison many days. And they both dreamed a dream, each man his dream, in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. The cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were bound in prison, Joseph came in to them in the morning and saw them, and saw that they were sad. He asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in the master's house, saying, "Why do you look so sad today?" Then they said to him, "We have dreamed a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell it to me." The chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph and said to him, "In my dream, behold, a vine was in front of me, and in the vine were 3 branches. It was though it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters produced ripe grapes. Then Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand." Joseph said to him, "This is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. You will give Pharaoh's cup into his hand in the way you did when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it is well with you. Please show kindness to me and make mention of me to Pharaoh and bring me out of this house. For indeed, I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into this dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, "I also was in my dream, and behold, 3 baskets of white bread were on my head. In the uppermost basket there were all kinds of baked food for Pharaoh, and the birds ate them out of my basket on my head." And Joseph answered, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from off you and will hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh from you." On the 3rd day, which is the Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer on the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the Nile. Behold, 7 cattle came up out of the Nile. They were sleek and fat, and they fed in the marsh grass. Behold, 7 other cattle came up after them out of the Nile, ugly and thin, and stood by the other cattle on the brink of the Nile. The ugly, thin cattle ate up the 7 sleek and fat cattle. So Pharaoh woke. He slept and dreamed a second time, and behold, 7 heads of grain came up on one stalk, healthy and good. Behold, 7 heads of grain, thin and blasted, with the east wind sprung up after them. The thin heads of the grain swallowed up the 7 healthy and full ears. Pharaoh woke, and behold, it was a dream. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all of Egypt's magicians and wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer spoke to Pharaoh, saying, "I remember my faults today." Pharaoh was angry with his servants, and put me in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, with the chief baker. We each dreamed a dream on the same night, he and I. Each man dreamed according to the interpretation of his dream. There was with us there a young man, a Hebrew, a servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. He interpreted to each man according to his dream. And as he interpreted to us, so it was. He restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph And they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Then Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood on the brink of the Nile, and behold, there came up out of the Nile 7 cattle, fat and sleek. They fed in the marsh grass, and behold, 7 other cattle came up after them, poor and very ugly and thin, such as never saw in the land of Egypt for ugliness. The thin and ugly cattle ate up the first 7 fat cattle. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them. But they were still ugly, as at the beginning. So I awoke. I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 heads of grain came up after one stalk full and good. And behold, 7 heads of grain withered thin and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads of grain. I told it to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. What God is about to do, he has declared to Pharaoh. The 7 good cattle are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. The dream is one. The 7 thin and ugly cattle that came up from them are 7 years, and also 7 empty heads of grain blasted for the east wind will be 7 years of famine. That is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Behold, 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt are coming. 7 years of famine will arise after them, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will not be known in the land by reason of that famine which follows, for it will be very grievous. The dream was doubled to Pharaoh, because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look for a discreet and wise man, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint overseers over the land, and take up a 5th part of the land of Egypt's produce in the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food these good years that come, and store grain under the hand of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. The food will be for supply for the land the 7 years of famine, which will be in the land of Egypt, that the land may not perish through the famine. The thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find such one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Because God has shown you all of this, there is no one so discreet and wise as you. You shall be over my house. All my people will be ruled according to your word. Only in the throne I will be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Behold, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in the robes of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. They cried before him, Bow the knee. He set them over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh. Without you, no man shall lift up his hand or his foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, as a wife. And Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out of the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. In the 7 plenteous years earth produced abundantly, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. And he stored food in each city from the fields around that city. And Joseph laid up the grain as the sand of the sea, very much, until he stopped counting, for it was without number. To Joseph were born 2 sons before the year of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him, Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for, he said, God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. The name of the second called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years of plenty that were in the land of Egypt came to an end. The 7 years of famine began to come, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said to all Egyptians, "Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do." The famine was all over the surface of the earth. Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians. The famine was severe in the land of Egypt, so all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe in all the earth. Now Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, and Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go there and buy for us there, so that we may live and not die." So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he said, lest perhaps harm happen to him. The sons of Israel came to buy among these who came from the famines was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was the governor over the land. It was he who sold to all the people of the land. Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves down to him with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers, and he recognized them, but acted like a stranger to them, and spoke roughly with them. And he said to them, "Where did you come from?" They said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." Yet he said to them, "No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land." But they said, "We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is today with our father, and one is no more." Joseph said to them, "It is like I told you, saying, You are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go out from here unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let him get your brother, and you shall be bound, that your words be tested, whether there is truth in you, or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." And he put them all together into custody for 3 days. Joseph said to them on the 3rd day, "Do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, then let one of your brothers be bound in your prison, but you go, carry grain by the famine of your houses. Bring your youngest brother to me, so will your words be verified, and you will not die." They did so. Then they said to one another, "We are certainly guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we would not listen. Therefore this distress came upon us." And Reuben answered them, saying, "Did I not tell you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and you would not listen? Therefore also, behold, his blood is required." They did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. Then he turned himself away from them and wept. And he returned to them, spoke to them, and took Simeon from among them, and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave a command to fill their bags with grain, and to restore each man's money into his sack, and to give them food for their way. So it was done to them. They loaded their donkeys with their grain, and departed from there. As one of them opened the sack to give his donkey food in the lodging place, he saw his money. Behold, it was in the mouth of his sack. He said to his brothers, "My money is restored. Behold, it is in my sack." Their hearts failed them, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" They came to Jacob their father to the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them, saying, The man, the lord of the land, spoke roughly with us and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, We are honest men. We are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is today with our father in the land Canaan. The man, the lord of the land, said to us, By this I will know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, and take grain for the famine of your houses, and go your way. Bring your younger brother to me, then I will know that you are not spies, but that you are honest men. So I will deliver your brother to you, and you shall trade in the land. As they entered their sacks, behold, each man's bounty of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bounties of money, they were afraid. Jacob their father said to them, You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and you want to take Benjamin away? All these things are against me. Then Reuben said to his father, saying, Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him to you. Entrust him to my care, and I will bring him to you again. He said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he only is left. If harm happens to him along the way in which you go, then you will bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol.